Hello, and thank you for joining me today. I hope you caught yesterday's video. We're doing more of the same today, some automatic drawing, but this time with color. Of course, you can do this just in regular graphite, but I'm using woodless watercolor pencils this time around. We're going to be adding water later, like we did in the last one. Same thing with using a fine liner pen to put in more concrete details. But right now, you can see I'm just finding shapes, and that's the whole point of automatic drawing. Is it's kind of like a nice big sigh for your mind, you know? You can just let the shapes happen on the paper. Don't try to force them any which way or try to control it. Just ease into it and let it happen. And that's what I'm doing here. I'm starting with my yellow. So far with these, I've always started with the yellow. This is only my third one of these, I want to say, that I've done. Yeah, the first one was really dark and I didn't care for it. And then yesterday's was nice and light, and we're going to go along those same lines again. I'm trying to create these fantasy worlds that I see in my head, just having a little fun. Oh, you can see that I've already got the shape that I'm going for. We're not going to add much more to that. We're just going to add in color and keep doing the same thing. I've got this green, and like I mentioned in the last video, I choose a set of 4 colors that I pretty consistently use with my acrylics, with my oil paints, and now with these watercolor pencils. It's always a very deep, rich, kind of golden yellow, and then more of, I would say, it's not quite a warm forest green. The pencil looks a little different than you would see in paints, but when you add water to it, it's kind of that oxide green, so a little more olivey. And then I'm coming in with the red. Now the red I do know is alizarin crimson. It is one of my favorite reds. It blends really well, and it's a good red in its own right. And you can see with the red, I'm filling in the centers where I didn't before, because I decided I wanted to put a little something in there. They're like portals, and yesterday I had towns, but today I'm adding in what I think look like little ships in my head. You can see they have a body on the water, and then you've got that great big mast coming up. So that could be really fun. It's definitely a different feeling than yesterday, but I'm using the exact same colors, which is a really fun thing to think about, how diverse you can, how diverse of paintings that you can do, just with a few things. And here we go with the blue at the end. I don't want too much of the blue in this particular drawing. You've got those little, I think they kind of look like houses on the ridge there, little dwellings that you might be able to go back inside and see. Kind of redefining those ships a little bit more, and that's how simple that was, that I wasn't even trying to draw them. I just put the pencil on the paper and kind of let it do its thing and let my mind tell me what it thought was there. I think that's really good. It's a good practice to be able to listen to yourself, to be comfortable with yourself and listen to what you got going on. You never know what your body may tell you that you didn't realize. Now here I come with a wet brush. All I have is water in there. That is a watercolor brush. And you can see how that water instantly brings those colors to life and really makes them pop. You can push them around on the paper, create lines that you didn't before, or just kind of blend them into each other. Kind of like I was talking about in yesterday's video, you want to be careful and work in sections. You can get color on your brush and drag it out into other areas, but also if you put 2 wet sections next to each other, they can end up bleeding into each other, and you may lose your defined lines and areas that maybe you wanted to keep. If you don't want to, you can always let it bleed all over, but you can see I came back in with the pencil there, and anytime you add those pencils back to wet paper, as you could see, it was very dark, and it does leave a lot of the color on the page. So that's not something I really recommend. I don't think it's good for your pencils, but you can go in and do that. Personally, I would wait for a section to dry, and then I would come back in and add in more color if I wanted more color in that particular area. Once your painting's dry, you can tell you've had to come back in if it was still wet, and I just don't think it looks very cohesive. Oh, as you can see, doing little sections up there, I do think those look like little dwellings, and you can see where I'm pushing the pigment around on the paper to kind of, create those extra little lines or details and differentiate what everything is. Little bubbles. I do wish I had put more bubbles on this painting. I really enjoyed yesterday's having all those different ones. But again, these could be totally different worlds. I don't know where I'm going with this yet. I'm just exploring and having fun. I think these could be a really cool watercolor book, maybe. Probably got a story in there somewhere, right? Activating the color a little more. And if you want to ever keep your pencil lines, all you have to do is just be very light and gentle with that color. If you use a lot of water, then you're going to saturate it and kind of blend it all into each other. But if you want to keep your lines, it's as easy as not using as much water on there. And here we go with the fine liner. I'm going to use the same colors I did yesterday. I've got this kind of sepia tone fine liner as well as a gray that I'll be using. I just really want to kind of define the ships here, and that's just it. You don't have to take your marker in and define absolutely everything, but I wanted to be able to differentiate them from the water, and just a couple lines shows exactly what I see there. Now it looks like I've got boats on some water sailing out into who knows the forever, out into worlds beyond. And there I'm kind of defining that a little bit more. I think maybe I'll be working more and more on defining those little huts and deciding who lives in there, you know? Those are the questions as I start creating these little worlds. Who lives there? Does anybody live there? Are they animals? Are they people? What do they do? And I love just being able to think about that, you know? It's good to stretch your imagination and just play like when you were a kid. You don't ever want to forget that you can have as rich of an imagination as you want. Creativity can be cultivated. It just has to find you thinking of it. And the more you think about it, the more you let your mind just kind of go and tell you different stories, the more you could discover. Here we go with the gray, defining those bubbles like I did yesterday. Just a little bit. You don't want to overwork anything. The idea itself is pretty simple. And there we go. This guy is all done and ready to go. I really do enjoy the ships kind of sailing off into who knows where, into these fantastical lands that I haven't even thought of yet. And you've got all those little dwellings up top there that look like they could be a whole village, or maybe different people live there. I don't know yet. There's so many possibilities. Are you guys up to anything creative?